Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we clear up one thing today, it's on that map that I provided you. I'm going to walk y'all through that real quick. I am sick and tired of hearing that everybody failed during Winter Storm Uri. That is a lie. That is a lie. Everybody did not fail during Winter Storm Uri. If you look at that map I showed you, over on the right-hand side, I know it's not color-coded, you do see some natural gas come offline. But that's like saying Luka only having 45 points against the Mavs last week was a bad game when he scored 60 in another game. Natural gas was overperforming by a wide margin leading up to and during Winter Storm Uri. Did they have some problems? Yes, but they still overperformed during that. If you look over on the right, natural gas is that line at the top. Coal is, if you go down, coal is the second line, which is much lower. Nuclear is the third line, and then you come into wind and solar. Despite wind power having significantly more resources, quote unquote, available to the grid, they performed fourth best on the grid during Winter Storm Uri. I just want to clarify that because there's a lot of misinformation out there about what happens on our grid. Natural gas filled the gap and saved the lives of millions of Texans during Winter Storm Uri, and they ought to be praised for doing so. The problem that we have, and the problem that this bill aims to solve, is that you're already paying for wind and solar not to be available. Those costs are already factored into the market to the tune of about $2.3 billion a year through the variability of wind and increased ancillary services costs to the market. That is an increased cost that is subsidized by all consumers across the ERCOT marketplace. That's already baked in. You had 4 people who are paid to be here come testify against this bill, paid by wind and solar because they don't want to bear the brunt of the cost that they are sending to every single one of your consumers at home. Well, maybe not Speaker Phelons because he's not in ERCOT, but to everybody else's, and you're not in ERCOT, but to everybody else's, your consumers are paying those costs currently. Yeah, Metcalf's not either. What are we doing here? That's right. So here's the situation. $2.3 billion spread out across the market for every ratepayer in Texas in ERCOT, or the folks causing the problem paying that cost. That's the choice before you with this bill. Do we put the cost where it belongs, or do we continue to spread that out over consumers across the state of Texas? I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Members' questions, Mr. Patterson.
I have one.
Ms. Davis.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, let me ask you something. I'm
Yes,
new to
ma'am.
this committee, but I thought we, as a legislature, had created a firming process, and we have this process that's not currently finished. Are we ultimately undermining the legislation that we passed to make it a more secure environment?
That's a really good question. What this bill simply does is remove the date. That's all it does. It just removes the start date on the firming requirement. We need that firming requirement. We just need to have it happen across all generators. But by saying a 2027 start, we're picking winners and losers as a legislature. We're willy-nilly picking a date in the future and saying, okay, we're going to pick winners and losers in the future, but all of y'all that aren't providing this firming requirement currently, you just get to keep performing and not covering the costs that you're implementing on all users.
But in fact, when we pass legislation, we typically don't retroactively and change in the midstream, and that's what it seems like this bill does.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. It does. Yeah, absolutely. We don't typically retroactively do it, but we also, I think, don't typically deal with life and death issues like this. I mean, this is a life and death issue when you've got such a large percentage of our generation capacity in ERCOT at the whims of Mother Nature that we can't count on when we need it. And I showed you Winter Storm Uri. I could show you every other extreme weather event in Texas that we've had over the last 5 years, and it's the same thing. Wind and solar doesn't show up when we need it, and that is a huge problem, and there's a cost associated with that problem, and every resident in your district is paying that cost.
All right. Members, other questions? Of seeing none. All right.